fuss. But this dog wasn't acting like a stray. His movements were too deliberate, too intentional. His eyes were locked protectively on the girl, and it was like he was daring anyone to try and harm her. The girl sat frozen, hands still clutching her backpack, and between sobs, she looked up at the growing crowd. People were whispering you ever see something that makes you question everything about humanity. Like, what would you do if you walked past a child crying alone in the rain? Honestly, would you stop? Or would you pretend you didn't see it and carry on with your day? Because what I'm about to tell you actually happened, and it's going to make you rethink everything. A little girl sat sobbing at a bus stop whilst dozens of people walked straight past her. Not one person stopped. Not one. But then, something extraordinary happened. A dad appeared out of nowhere and did what every single human failed to do. And when he tell you what happened next, you're going to feel it deep in your chest. This is one of those stories that stays with you. So before we dive in, do me a favor ya, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I genuinely love seeing how far these stories reach. Right, let's get into it. The sky that afternoon was absolutely miserable. Proper gray, thick clouds hanging low. The kind that make you want to stay indoors with a chupa and not venture out at all. But life doesn't stop for bad weather, does it? And at this little bus stop on the outskirts of town, there was a young girl sitting completely alone on a damp wooden bench. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. Her bright pink backpack sat slumped beside her like it weighed a ton, and her head was down, shoulders shaking as she cried quietly into her hands. The tears just kept coming, streaming down her face, and she looked so small, so vulnerable, so heartbreakingly alone. And yet, somehow, she was invisible. People walked past her constantly, loads of them. A bloke in a suit tapping away on his phone like his life depended on it, face buried in the screen. A couple of teenagers laughing and joking, headphones in, completely oblivious to anything around them. A mom dragging her kid by the hand, practically speedwalking past, deliberately avoiding eye contact with the crying girl. Everyone had somewhere to be, didn't they? Everyone was in a rush. The sound of traffic hummed in the background. The world just carried on, and this little girl sat there, forgotten. Her tiny hands were gripping the straps of her backpack so tightly her knuckles had gone white, like she was holding onto it for dear life. She was whispering something to herself, but the words were lost in the noise of the street. No more one could hear her. No more one was listening. Minutes dragged on, felt like hours, probably to her. Dozens of people saw her. Dozens of eyes glanced her way, but not a single soul stopped to ask if she was all right. Not one person thought, hang on, why is this child crying alone? She was just there, small and scared and forgotten, destined to sit in that spot until something changed. And then, out of the mist and the drizzle, something did change. From the far end of the street, a figure emerged. Not a person, a dog, a GermanShepherd, to be exact. His fur was soaked through from the damp ground, ears standing tall and alert, eyes sharp and focused. And unlike every single human who had hurried past that little girl, he stopped. Just like that, he stopped and looked at her. For a moment, he stood perfectly still, studying her trembling frame, and there was something in his eyes, something that felt almost human. Like he understood, like he knew she needed help. The girl sniffled and wiped her face, finally noticing the dad standing there watching her. But she wasn't scared. If anything, there was this flicker of relief on her face, like maybe, just maybe, someone cared. The shepherd moved slowly, deliberately, his paws splashing softly in a puddle as he approached. He stopped a few feet away, tilted his head, and it was like he was asking, "Why are you crying?" And when she didn't answer, when she just sat there staring at him with those terror-filled eyes, he made a decision. He planted himself directly in front of her, chest out, tail low but steady, and he became her guardian. Every time someone walked past, he barked. Loud, sharp, commanding, impossible to ignore. People flinched, turned around, startled by the sudden noise. But the dog didn't budge. He stood firm, staring down anyone who came near. The girl gasped softly, covering her mouth as fresh tears spilled over. But this time they were different. They weren't just tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of shock, of disbelief, of something like hope. Because for the first time that entire day, someone was standing up for her. Someone cared. And it wasn't a person, it was a dog. The German Shepherd didn't move. The rain fell harder. Cars sped past, people hurried by, but he stayed. His barks echoed off the wet pavement, loud enough to make people stop in their tracks. Passers-by who had ignored the crying girl just moments before were now turning their heads, curiosity and the confusion pulling them closer. The dog paced by and forth in front of her like a soldier on duty, growling low whenever someone dared to walk too close without actually stopping to look at her properly. Some people muttered complaints under their breath. "Whose dog is this?" One bloke grumbled, clearly annoyed by the disruption. Others laughed nervously, probably thinking it was just a stray kicking up an anagram now, pointing, wondering aloud why this dad had chosen her. A few brave souls stepped closer, but every single time, the shepherd barked sharply, pushing them back with sheer force of will. He wasn't letting anyone near her unless they were actually going to help. Traffic started. Too slow. A driver rolled down his window to watch. A cyclist stopped, rain dripping from his helmet, staring at the scene unfolding in front of him. The dog's persistence had done what the girl's stares couldn't. He'd forced the world to pause. He'd made them notice. And suddenly, it was impossible to ignore what was happening right there in front of them. No one knew the full story yet, but it was clear something was very wrong. And this German Shepherd wasn't about to let them walk away a second time. Finally, a woman in the crowd broke the silence. She knelt down at a safe distance, keeping her voice soft and gentle. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" she asked. The girl's lip trembled, but before she could even get a word out, the German Shepherd barked sharply, making everyone jump. His eyes stayed locked on the stranger, like he was warning her not to rush, not to get too close too quickly. The girl sniffled, clutching her back even tighter, and in the smallest, most fragile voice, she whispered, He can't find my mom." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. This wasn't just a tired kid having a tantrum. This was a child who was lost, scared, and utterly alone. The shepherd whined softly, lowering his body as if to reassure her, and then he turned back to the crowd and barked again, urgency ringing in his voice. It was like he was demanding they do something, like he was saying, "You lot ignored her before. Not this time." His behavior wasn't random. It was clear as day. He understood her distress, and he wasn't letting anyone dismiss it again. Someone pulled out their phone and rang the authorities. Another woman carefully approached with a bottle of water, moving slowly so she didn't spook the dog. The girl explained between sobs that she'd been waiting for hours, that no one had helped, that she didn't know what to do. Her small frame shook as she spoke, and the guilt washed over the bystanders like a wave. They'd all seen her earlier. They'd all walked past. And it was the dog, not the adults, who'd forced the world to care. The wail of sirens soon echoed down the street, growing louder until a patrol car pulled up beside the bus stop. Two officers stepped out, quickly scanning the scene, trying to piece together what was going on. The German Shepherd barked sharply, then positioned himself between the girl and the crowd like he was giving them a full briefing on what had happened. One officer crouched low, speaking gently. "It's all right, sweetheart. We're here to help." The girl wiped her tears and glanced at the shepherd, almost like she was asking his permission. When the dog gave a soft whine, like he was saying, "Go on, it's safe now," she finally nodded and let the officer approach. The bystanders stood in guilty silence as the officers listened to her story. She'd been separated from her mother hours ago, and in all that time, not a single person had stopped to ask why she was crying alone. The officers exchanged grim looks. It was obvious the shepherd had been the only one to notice, the only one to protect her. Carefully, they guided the girl towards the patrol car, promising her they'd reunite her with her mom. The shepherd trotted beside her until the very last moment, his tail wagging slowly, his duty fulfilled. One officer turned to the crowd and shook his head. "Sometimes," he sighed quietly, "animals show more humanity than we do." The words hit hard, and everyone standing there knew he was right. Later that evening, news of the incident spread like wildfire. People shared the story everywhere. The little girl at the bus stop and the German Shepherd who'd refused to leave her side. What dozens of adults had ignored, one that had recognized instantly. And his actions had changed everything. At the station, the girl was finally reunited with her mother. Tears of relief poured down both their faces as they hugged each other tightly. The mom whispering thanks to the officers and to the loyal dog who stood guard when no one else would. The shepherd wagged his tail proudly, like he understood exactly what he'd done. And for the bystanders who'd walked past her earlier, the lesson was heavy but unforgettable. Compassion doesn't always come from humans. Sometimes it takes a four-legged protector to remind you us what true loyalty and courage actually look like. So here's the thing. This story isn't just about Dad being brilliant, though he absolutely was. It's about all of us. It's about how easy it is to look away, to assume someone else will help, to convince ourselves that we're too busy or that it's not our problem. That little girl needed help, and the Adag saw it before any human did. Adag, let that sink in. We've got to do better. We've got to be the kind of people who stop, who notice, who care. Because if we don't, we're letting the animals be more human than we are. And that's not okay. If this story moved you, do me a favor. Share it. Tell about it. Let it be our reminder to stop and help when you see someone in need. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what you think. Have you ever witnessed something like this? Let's keep this conversation going. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.